Hey, if you're scrolling Nosleep at 3 a.m. like I used to, nursing a lukewarm coffee and chasing that next hit of unease, stop. Just pause. This isn't one of those polished creepypastas where the twist punches you in the gut at the end. No, this is Messier. Raw. It's me, Alex, ER nurse at St. Agnes General, 13 years of stitching up the fallout from bad decisions, holding hands through the final rattle, and pretending the fluorescent hum doesn't whisper back sometimes. I post these because if I don't, it'll eat me alive. And now, it's starting to feel like it's reaching for you too. It was a Tuesday night, the kind that drags like wet gauze. The ER was a circus of the usual suspects, a guy with a fork in his thigh from a bar fight gone biblical, a mom hyperventilating over her kid's fever blister, the endless beep of monitors syncing to some unspoken rhythm. I was elbow deep in charts, the air thick with antiseptic bite and that faint undercurrent of despair you learn to ignore. Normalcy, right? The grind that keeps you sane, clipboards, caffeine, cynical banter with the docs who treat us like caffeinated ghosts. Then, room 7. Mr. Harlan, 82, lungs like shredded paper from a lifetime of regrets. Car accident, they said, swerved to miss a deer that wasn't there. He was coding out slow, the kind where you know it's curtains but you dance the routine anyway. IVs dripping, defib charged, me leaning in close to catch vitals. His eyes fluttered, milky and distant, locking on mine for a split second that stretched too long. Not fear. Not pain. Something older. Elyria, he rasped. Not a gasp for water. Not, tell my wife. Just that. Elyria. It slithered out like smoke from a cracked window, low and throaty, curling around the words like it didn't want to let go. I froze, stethoscope cold against my palm. The monitors flatlined in perfect time, but his lips kept moving, shaping it again, Elyria, before the light winked out. No family to call, no dramatic last words. Just a name that hung in the air, heavier than the sheets I pulled over him. I charted it as delirium, of course. Nurses do that, box the weird into tidy columns, laugh it off in the break room over vending machine candy. But as I scrubbed out, that whisper clung. It echoed in the sink's drip, in the squeak of my sneakers on linoleum. Elyria. Who the hell was Elyria? A hallucination from the morphine drip? Some forgotten relative? By morning, I laughed it off. We all do, chart the crazy, forget the chills. But here's the thing, the part that itches under your skin if you're still listening. This isn't like those Russian sleep experiment tales, all screams and science gone wrong. This is my chart. And 2 shifts later? It happened again. Louder. Being a nurse means smiling through puked rainbows while death clocks in overtime, his shift overlapping yours like a bad blind date. You learn to love the chaos because the quiet? That's when the real ghosts show up, not the spectral kind, but the ones in your head, tallying up the what-ifs from every flatline you couldn't outrun. St. Agnes is my personal purgatory, a sprawling beast of beige walls and buzzing fluorescence, where the air tastes like bleach and broken dreams. We've got the ER pit, a maw that swallows the city's drunks, junkies, and jilted lovers. Upstairs, the wards stretch like veins, pumping the half-alive through 4 drips and midnight meds. It's a pressure cooker, sure, 13-hour stretches where coffee runs become sacraments, and banter is the only bandage that sticks. Take shift 3, post Harlan. I'm hauling a crash cart down the hall, sneakers squeaking like they're auditioning for a horror flick, when Tina, my night shift warhorse, tattoos peeking from her scrubs like war paint, corners me at the nurse's station. Another code blue, she drawls, popping a nicotine gum like it's Holy Communion. At least it's not the full moon. Last lunacy had that guy swearing his shadow tried to strangle him. I snort, charting a fever spike on little Timmy, whose appendix is plotting a jailbreak. Yeah, well, my shadow's just here for the overtime. Past the caffeine, I've got 3 more hours of playing God with a stethoscope. We laugh, because what else? Dark humor's our armor, forged in break rooms where vending machines dispense regret-flavored chips. It's the grind that grounds you, the ritual of glove snaps, the symphony of beeps syncing to your pulse, the way you can spot a liar's chart from across the room. Normalcy in the madness, IVs dripping like metronomes, Coffee runs to the roach-infested lounge where we trade war stories. Remember that deep web post about the sleep experiment? I quipped to Tina, stirring my sludge. Screams in the vents? Ours are just patients yelling for more Jell-O. She cackles, but her eyes flick to the flickering light above us, that one bulb in the hall that stutters like it's got a secret. Subtle, at first. The anomalies creep in like bad habits you swear you'll quit. Lights humming off beat, sinking to murmurs you swear aren't there, soft, like wind through cracked vents, but with a rhythm that tugs at your eardrums. I chalk it up to exhaustion, the kind that blurs edges until a patient's groan sounds like a symphony. Like that SpongeBob Lost episode you all theorized last video, innocent on the surface, rotten underneath, with Plankton's laugh glitching into something that watches back. Harmless nostalgia, right? Until it isn't. Tina's joking about ghost patients, they tip better than the living, leave ectoplasm stains, when the intercom crackles. Room 12, Mrs. Harlan, no relation, thank God, 89 and fading from pneumonia. Laugh all you want, but when she rasped it too. Elyria, my coffee went cold. It spilled across the counter, dark as ink, and the lights above us flickered in time, once, twice, like applause. Not delirium this time. Her eyes, clear as cut glass, fixed on me. Elyria waits. She breathed, and the murmur from the vents? It answered. I've seen charts vanish overnight, poof, redacted like they never bled. What if Elyria's not a name, but a key to something bigger? Drop your theories in the comments if you dare. Because 2 patients in 3 shifts. That's coincidence. The third. That's when the grind starts grinding back. The quiet hour hit like a held breath, that deceptive lull between the evening rush and the graveyard shift's slow bleed. St. Agnes goes still then, the sterile beeps of monitors stretching into a mechanical lullaby, for pumps chugging like distant trains. It's the time when you catch up on charts, swap hushed stories about the day's disasters, and pretend the building isn't settling around you like a coffin lid. I was in the East Wing, clipboard in hand, dodging the flicker of that cursed hall light that Tina swore was haunted by a former orderly's grudge. Normalcy clung hard, the crisp snap of gloves, the faint tang of saline, the way the world outside blurred into sodium vapor glow through rain-streaked windows. But under it all, that itch from Mrs. Harlan's whisper lingered, a splinter I couldn't dig out. It started with the kid. Room 14, Jamie, 17, overdose on whatever cocktail the streets were peddling that week. Punk hair faded to roots, tattoos snaking up arms like escape routes. She'd been stable for hours, eyes glassy under the morphine haze, monitors pinging steady as a heartbeat. I was adjusting her drip when her lips parted, no preamble, just that rasp, organic, throat scraping, like gravel dragged over silk. Elyria. It cut through the beeps, not blending but clashing, a wet choke that made the air thicken. I leaned in, pulse jumping. Jamie. What did you say, hon? Need more pain meds. Her eyes cracked open, pupils blown wide, but not vacant, knowing, like she'd seen the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard. Elyria, she repeated, slower, the word uncoiling in her chest. It's coming for the listeners. Evasive, laced with that dread that hooks into your ribs. I pressed, voice low. Who? Jamie, talk to me. Who's Elyria? But she just smiled, thin and sharp, and the monitor beeped on, oblivious. Before I could page psych, it echoed from across the hall. Room 16, Mr. Vasquez, car crash victim, mid-40s, ribs cracked like eggshells, still smelling of asphalt and cheap cologne. Unrelated to Jamie, worlds apart, he'd been joking with the tech earlier about his midlife demolition derby. Now, his head lolled on the pillow, lips moving in sync. Elyria. The timbre matched, throaty, insistent, syncing with Jamie's like a duet from hell. The beeps faltered for a split second, or maybe that was my imagination, but the contrast hit like ice water. Machines humming their cold precision while flesh rendered something primal, forbidden. I bolted between rooms, heart slamming. Mr. Vasquez? What the? Did you hear that? He didn't look at me, eyes fixed on the ceiling tiles as if they spelled secrets. Elyria knows the marked. he murmured, voice a scrape against bone. Once you hear, only you hear. The rule slipped out casual, like he'd read it from a menu. Whispers only for those who've caught the echo once. Marked. It landed heavy, that word, stirring the ghost of Harlan's rasp in my ears. I grabbed his chart, flipping frantic. Delirium? Shared hallucination. But then room 18 chimed in. Old Mrs. Greer, dementia's favorite chew toy, 94 and lost in loops of dead husbands and wartime recipes. She'd been silent all shift, knitting shadows with gnarled fingers. Now her needles clattered still, and the unison hit. Elyria, from all three mouths at once, a chorus that vibrated the floor under my feet. The beeps warped around it, tinny and wrong, while their voices wove organic dread, throats raw, breath sinking in a rhythm no machine could match. I burst in, demanding, "Stop, what is this? Who's Elyria?" Greer's eyes met mine, milky but piercing. "The one who waits in the quiet. For listeners like you." One old-timer slipped me a note as I backed out, fingers trembling. "Elyria feeds on echoes." Burned it in the lounge sink later, watched the ash curl like accusations. But now, wish I hadn't. Because as the chorus faded, leaving only the beep's sterile echo, Jamie's hand shot out, cold and insistent, clamping my wrist. Her nails dug in, eyes locking with a clarity that wasn't hers. "You're next, nurse. Say it 3 times." My heart pounded like the alarms I knew were coming, a thunder that drowned the quiet. I clocked out shaking, but dawn brought more bodies and more mouths. If I told you the hospital's buried a dozen cases like this, whispers that spread like a virus no one's vaccinated for, would you keep listening? Or would you close the tab, tell yourself it's just another nurse's fever dream, and scroll on to safer shadows? I get it. I tried that too. Dawn broke over St. Agnes like a bad hangover, painting the parking lot in watery light, and I sat in my beat-up Civic, hands locked on the wheel, staring at the dashboard clock like it held answers. 3 whispers in one night. Unrelated patients, same names scraping from their throats. Coincidence, my ass. But admitting it meant cracking open a door I wasn't sure I could close. Great, now I'm the star of my own deep web doc, Nurse Gone Whisper, streaming live from the psych ward. Denial's a hell of a drug, cheaper than the benzos they dole out upstairs. I clocked in late, badge beeping like an accusation, and beeline for the break room, our cluttered sanctuary of stained mugs, half-eaten donuts, and the faint mildew tang that no amount of Febreze could exorcise. Normalcy hit like a warm blanket. Tina sprawled in a folding chair, scrolling TikToks of cat fails. Raj, the day shift doc, nursing a latte and his perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. I slumped into a seat, grabbing a stale bagel, forcing a grin. Rough night. Patients forming a barbershop quartet, singing off-key about some chick named Elyria. Tina snorted, not looking up. "Sounds like my ex. Tell him to keep it down, we've got actual drama brewing." Raj glanced over, his eyes crinkling with that skeptical squint he saves for my wilder tales. He's the steady one, Harvard med, ego to match, but with a dry wit that cuts through the bullshit. Elyria? As in, the goddess of bad decisions? Or just mass hysteria, Alex? Like those 4chan rituals where kids summon demons with emojis. I laughed, too sharp, crumbs scattering like fleeing thoughts. Yeah, doc, because nothing says apocalypse like a fentanyl OD and a knitting grandma tag teaming a chant. It's probably the new strain of flu, whisper variant. He leaned in, voice dropping to that patronizing timbre. Look, we've all pulled all-nighters. Shared delusions happen. Remember the haunted vending machine scare? Turned out to be rats. Chart it, medicate it, move on. Easy for him, docs diagnose from afar, we nurses wade in the muck. But his words stuck, a splinter under the nail. Remember that Nosleep post about the whispering walls? The one where the apartment complex hummed with voices that only the tenants heard, driving them to carve silence into their skin? This is realer, grungier. No poetic flourishes, just the weight of it pressing on my chest as I nodded, mumbled agreement, and slipped out while they debated fantasy football. Denial fueled the hunt, turning curiosity into a compulsion. By lunch, I was ghosting the basement archives, that forgotten warren under the hospital where the air hangs thick with dust and disuse. Keycard access? Bribed a maintenance guy with cafeteria pizza. No alarms, just the hum of ancient fluorescence and the faint drip of pipes plotting leaks. The microfiche room was a tomb of steel cabinets, screens glowing like judgmental eyes. Cluttered breakroom chatter faded behind me, replaced by this sterile void, glitchy monitors flickering with the ghosts of old records, faces blurred in grainy black and white. I fed in a reel labeled Incident Reports, 1980-2000, fingers trembling as it whirred to life. Normal admissions at first, appendectomies, sprained ankles. Then, the redacted logs. Black bars slashing across pages like censorship's knife, whisper outbreak, Ward B, 1993, 7 points affected. Symptom, repetitive utterance, Elyria. Resolution, redacted. My breath fogged the screen. Further back, 1972, echo phenomenon. Contagion via auditory exposure. Marked individuals only. And the photos, blurry scans of patients, mouths agape, faces distorted as if mid-scream, lips shaping that name in silent accusation. Elyria. The screens glitched harder, pixels dancing, and for a heartbeat, I swore I heard it, audible, a rasp bleeding from the speakers, low and inviting. The admin's email? Elyria protocol, silence or severance. What's it hiding from us nurses? I yanked the reel, heart hammering, stuffing printouts into my scrubs like contraband. Logs done, I punched back in. Big mistake. Punching back in felt like crossing a threshold into someone else's nightmare. The badge scanners beep a mocking fanfare. The archives dust still clung to my scrubs, that email, Elyria protocol, burning in my pocket like a guilty secret. Shift 4, and the hospital thrummed with false festivity. Tinsel strung haphazardly over the nurses' station, a battered boombox crooning Jingle Bells from the lounge. Outside, carolers huddled under street lamps, their voices muffled by falling snow, cheerful, distant, like a broadcast from a world that hadn't cracked yet. Inside. The wards locked down tighter than a fresh suture, doors hissing shut on pneumatic arms, as if the building sensed the stain spreading. Whispers weren't content with patients anymore. They were seeping into the cracks, infecting the ones who mopped up the mess. It hit mid-rounds, in the dim stretch of Corridor C where the lights buzzed like trapped flies. Marcus, our lanky orderly, dreads tied back, always humming reggae to drown the monotony, was wheeling a linen cart, stacking sheets with that easy rhythm that made the grind bearable. We joked earlier about the holiday potluck, turkey tetrazzini or bust man, none of that jello salad crap. Normalcy, clinging like tinsel to a bare tree. Then, without warning, his hum fractured. Elyria, he muttered, the words slipping out mid-fold, throaty and unbidden, like it had clawed up from his gut. The cart rattled, sheets spilling in a white cascade, and Marcus froze, eyes glazing, body swaying like a reed in a storm. Marcus? Hey, you good? I lunged, catching his arm as he buckled, knees hitting tile with a crack that echoed louder than the carolers' bells. His lips kept moving, shaping it again, Ely-re-ah, while his chest heaved in shallow hitches. The contrast clawed at me. Outside, laughter peeled like silver, families bundling against the cold. In here, lockdown sirens hooped faintly, red lights pulsing over sealed doors, turning the hall into a vein under quarantine. Festive, right? Like a Black Mirror Christmas special, eggnog laced with existential dread, gifts that unwrap into voids. I eased him against the wall, fumbling for my phone, instinct, that desperate grab for proof in a world tilting off axis. Marcus, talk to me, what's happening? His eyes refocused, wild and wet, locking on mine with a recognition that wasn't his. The name, it jumped. From them to me. Jumped. Like a flea, or worse, a curse with legs. I hit record, thrusting the phone to his mouth as he rasped on, the audio capturing the scrape, the wet undertone that no holiday tune could drown. Alarms blared closer now, staff converging like moths to a flame, but Marcus just slumped, whispering fading to a gurgle. That's when room 22 stirred, old Mr. Ellis, post-heart attack, tubes snaking like promises he couldn't keep. He'd been quiet all shift, monitors beeping their merry little dirge. But as I pocketed the phone, his voice cut through, thin and insistent. You heard it. Now she hears you. Dialogue like a knife twist, his words hanging in the sterile air, laced with that intimate dread that makes your skin prickle. I spun, demanding, Who, Ellis? Who hears? He smiled, gums bared, eyes distant as forgotten carols. Elyria. The listener becomes the listened to. Marked. Nurse. All the way down. The ward's lockdown clamped harder, doors sealing with hydraulic sighs, while outside, a chorus swelled, Joy to the world. Joy. Right. I dragged Marcus to a gurney, barking orders at the incoming techs, but my mind looped on the recording. Whispers bind souls across time. Ever wonder why some Nosleep stories loop forever, pulling you back to the first chill, the echo that won't fade? That's what it felt like, past victims layering in, their breaths ghosting the present. The episodic cycle spun tighter, patients to staff, whispers evolving from isolated rasps to a chorus bleeding through walls. Carolers hit the high note outside, pure and piercing, while in here, Ellis's monitor flatlined in sync with Marcus's fading mutter. Quarantine teams swarmed, masks fogging with urgency, but the stain? It bloomed darker. Later, alone in the supply closet, door wedged, back to the wall, I thumbed play. The audio crackled, Marcus's voice first, raw and pleading. Then layers peeled back, Harlan's death rattle undertone, Jamie's punk snarl, Greer's knitting needle click woven in like static. Past victims? Or something older, threading through time like roots under soil? The phone warmed in my palm, screen glitching, flickers of snow, not the holiday kind, but digital decay. Playback. Not just Elyria, my own voice, whispering back. You think it's fiction? I found the first log, 1892. And it ends like this, the name unbound, the veil rent asunder. Elyria claims her due. Scrawled in a trembling hand, ink bled like tears on yellowed paper. Quarantine lifted by noon, the ward scrubbed sterile as a lie, but the isolation lingered in my bones, a hum that no bleach could erase. Marcus stabilized, sedated, charts amended to acute psychosis, and the holiday cheer seeped back in, tentative as a held breath. But me. I couldn't shake the layers in that recording, my voice threading through the dead like a needle pulling ghosts. So I dug deeper, trading sleep for stolen hours in the archives, microfiche reels spinning like prayers unanswered. Saint Agnes wasn't always this beige monolith of monitors and mercy. Built in 1923 on the bones of Willowbrook Asylum, that forgotten hell where the mad were warehoused like faulty parts, lobotomies by lantern light, screams swallowed by stone walls. The logs painted it vivid, patients clawing at doors, whispering of Elyria, an entity older than the bricks, tied to the land like rot to roots. Not a ghost, not some spectral nurse with unfinished business, no, something ancient, a fracture in the world where the veil thins. Whispers weren't random, they were a summoning code, a phonetic key that unlocked doors between here and the hollows. And the outbreaks. Cyclical, every 29 years, like a lunar curse. 1892, 1921, 1950. Ticking toward now. The conspiracy unraveled in fragments, redacted memos from the board, emails laced with corporate jargon. PharmaCorp, big players with deep pockets and deeper secrets, had buried it all. Willowbrook's treatments weren't just cruelty, they were experiments, dosing the damned with compounds to silence the echoes. Elyria wasn't madness, she was the madness they couldn't patent, a signal they jammed with pills and protocols. Suppress the summons, keep the funding flowing, hospitals as labs, nurses as unwitting wardens. I paced the basement, reels clattering, the air growing thick with dust motes dancing like summoned spirits. Why hide it? Because admitting Elyria meant admitting the veil's fragility, that every beeping ward was a thin skin over the void. That's when I found her, Lena, retired whistleblower, a ghost in scrubs who'd clocked out a decade ago but haunted the online forums like a digital poltergeist. I messaged blind, desperation my username, and she replied at 2 a.m., coffee. The diner off Elm. Come alone. Dawn found us in a vinyl booth, sunlight slanting through grease-streaked windows, casting her face in harsh relief, lines etched like fault lines, eyes sharp as scalpels. She stirred her black coffee, steam curling like whispers. "You heard it," she said, not a question. I nodded, throat tight. "Like that deep webtail from your last vid, the one with the endless loop of faces in the feed? This is the source code." Her laugh was a rasp, bitter as the brew. "Elyria's no tail. She's the echo of the asylum's first intake, a woman they drowned for speaking tongues, but she didn't die. She seeped into the stones, waiting for mouths to borrow. The Corps knew, they funded the cover-up. Whispers are invitations, say it enough, and she answers. But the real kick. It's selective. Feeds on the curious, the ones who dig." I leaned in, voice cracking. "Why suppress it? What's the endgame?" Lena's gaze hardened, fingers tracing a scar on her wrist, self-inflicted, she admitted later, to break the mark. "Profit. And fear. If the world's full of thin spots, who's left buying their happy pills? Run, Alex, before she names you back." Outside, the staff picnic bloomed under a merciless sun, blankets spread on the crabgrass quad, laughter bubbling like champagne, kids chasing frisbees while admins grilled burgers with forced joviality. Sunny, saccharine, the kind of forced normalcy that makes your teeth ache. Tina waved me over, plate piled high. "Potato salad? It's got real mayo, none of that low-fat heresy." I forced a smile, sinking onto the grass, the chatter a balm against the basement's chill. But shadows lengthened unnaturally, stretching east like accusatory fingers, pooling under picnic tables where light should linger. A child's balloon bobbed, its string whispering against the wind, Elyria. Or was that my pulse? Vulnerability hit then, raw and unbidden, as Lena's words sank hooks. I slipped away to the edge of the quad, back to a willow tree, ironic, that, tears hot and silent, tracing paths down my cheeks. 13 years stitching souls, and here I was, unraveling. What if it's real? I whispered to the bark, confessions spilling like blood from a fresh cut. The strong ones break quietest, don't they? Elyria's rule, name the named, claim the claimer. Who's next in your comments? She said run. But family visits don't wait. Family visits don't wait for veils to thicken or conspiracies to unravel. They crash in like codes at midnight, demanding you paste on a smile and pretend the world's not fraying at the edges. Mine was Mom, frail as tissue in her armchair, the living room a shrine to faded Polaroids and the faint scent of chamomile tea. I drove over post-picnic, shadows still clinging to my heels like unwanted guests, forcing small talk about the weather and her latest book club pick, a cozy mystery, ironic as hell. Sounds thrilling, I lied, stirring sugar into my mug, the spoon clinking like distant monitors. Home's cozy normalcy wrapped around me then, the cat, Whiskers, purring on the windowsill, batting at dust motes like they were prey. Take-out containers from last night's tie steaming on the coffee table, pad CEW twisting like veins on a chart. Laughter bubbled up, forced but familiar, Mom's stories of Dad's fishing mishaps, me nodding along, the weight lifting just enough to breathe. But hauntings don't knock, they seep through the cracks, turning sanctuary into stage. It started in the bathroom mirror that night, post-visit, steam fogging the glass as I scrubbed away the day's grime. The fluorescent hummed, same as the hospital's, and there I was, eyes hollowed, scrubs swapped for a threadbare tee, but the reflection lagged, lips parting a beat behind mine. I wiped the fog, breath catching, and that's when I heard it. My own voice, a whisper threading from the drain, low and throaty. Elyria. Not mine, not the Alex who'd laughed off Lena's warnings, but an echo, layered with the others, Harlan's rattle woven in like scar tissue. The mirror rippled, or maybe that was tears blurring the edges, my face distorting into something older, hungrier. Cozy home. It mocked me now, the cat's purr sinking to that rasp, takeout cooling into congealed regret. Sleep came reluctant, a pit I fell into clutching sheets like a lifeline. Dreams hit hard, cyclical and cruel. Elyria, not the drowned woman from the logs, but a spectral nurse, scrubs starched white, face half shadow, stethoscope dangling like a noose. She glided the asylum halls, Willowbrook's ghosts trailing her like interns, her voice a murmur that pulled souls from beds. Shift change, she breathed, hand on my shoulder, cold as morgue tiles. I ran corridors that looped back on themselves, doors hissing open to reveal patients with my eyes, mouthing the name in unison. "Join us," she cooed, her reflection in every puddle, every polished steel cart. The dream peaked episodic, a fever of familiarity, me, charting her rounds, her hand guiding mine over a patient's chart. "Mark the listeners. Feed the echoes." I woke gasping, sheets tangled, the bedroom clock glowing 4:17 a.m., that unholy hour when the veil mocks you with its thinness. Cynical humor surfaced like bile. Therapy? Nah, I just whisper my bill, Elyria's tab for this personal descent, payable insanity. But laughter died quick. The mirror across the room caught my eye, unbidden, showing not just alternatives but choices carved in frost. Say it, end it. Or listen. Forever. The forbidden secret hung there, a dare from the glass. End the cycle with a full-throated summons, or let the whispers bind you eternal, souls threading across time like Lena warned. FOMO clawed deep. What if ending it meant becoming her? I smashed the thought, dressed in the dark, badge clipped like armor. Home's coziness curdled, whiskers hissing at shadows that weren't there, take-out wrappers rustling with unheard breaths. Invasive, insistent, the hauntings turned personal, the cyclical turn complete, no longer observer, but vessel. Rounds waited, inevitable as dawn's lie. Room 9, post-dream haze still clinging, and there was Mrs. Langford, 68, late-stage cancer, the kind that hollows you out slow. She'd been lucid yesterday, cracking jokes about hospital gel being government issue. Now. Her eyes snapped to mine as I entered, monitors beeping their indifferent rhythm, the air thick with that organic tang of decline. Possession hit like a seizure, her body arched, not in pain but purpose, lips peeling back in a smile too wide, too knowing. "Sister." The word slithered out, not hers, Elyria's timbre, throat scraping and intimate, targeting me like a scalpel's edge. "Join the shift. We've missed your hands." I froze, chart slipping, the contrast gutting. Sterile beeps plodding on, oblivious to the invasion, while her voice wove dread into dialogue, pulling at threads only I could feel. "What are you?" I whispered, grabbing her wrist, pulse racing, not hers. "The echo you invited." He it replied, eyes rolling white. "Marked and mirrored. Say it with me, sister." "Elyria." The room tilted, home's fragile normalcy a distant memory, hauntings blooming invasive as kudzu. I wrenched free, alarms keening, but the words lodged, bubbling up unbidden as I fled the door. Did I just, oh God, it's in me now? Woke screaming, straight into rounds. No escape. The air thickened, every vent hissing. "Elyria, Elyria." A chorus swelling from the ducts like breath from 1,000 lungs, sinking to the rhythm of my own stuttered pulse. It started as a murmur, that insidious thread I'd swallowed in the mirror, but by evening rounds, it had metastasized, hospital-wide, a symphony of scraped throats bleeding through walls, floors, the very marrow of St. Agnes. Lights stuttered overhead, fluorescence popping like gunfire, plunging corridors into strobe-lit frenzy. Alarms wailed discordant, monitors shrieking in harmony with the name, while outside, the snow fell silent, muffling the world as if even the storm knew to hush. Chaos erupted not with a bang, but a whisper, patients arching in beds, orderlies freezing mid-step, the veil fracturing under the weight of invocation. I was in the central hub, charting Ellis's latest vitals, stable, the liar, when the first blackout hit. Power surged, then died, plunging us into red emergency glow, the kind that paints faces demonic. Whispers synchronized then, a wave crashing through the wards, room 7, Harlan's old haunt, rasping it from empty sheets, Jamie's punk snarl echoing from quarantine, Greer's needles clicking in absent rhythm. And deeper, layered, Lena's warning voice, Marcus's reggae hum twisted profane. The air hummed electric, charged with that organic scrape, throats raw across the building, pulling at the marked like hooks in flesh. Echo deaths followed, brutal and unified. Flat lines rippling in unison, a dozen monitors keening flat as patients convulsed, eyes rolling to whites, mouths frozen mid-name. Not random, choreographed, Elyria's orchestra conducting from the shadows. Protocol drills kicked in, that wrote normalcy we'd drilled 100 times. Evacuate in order, secure the patients, maintain calm. Tina barked it over the din, her voice cracking like thin ice, flashlight beams slicing the gloom as we huddled in the nurse's lounge. Me, her, Raj, a cluster of wide-eyed techs and aides, barricaded behind vending machines that rattled with each surge. Contrast Claude Vicious. The drill's scripted precision. Step 1, assess. Step 2, contain, against reality fracturing. Walls weeping ink black rivulets spelling ELYRIA in dripping script, seeping from cracks like accusations from the stone. The asylum's bones remembered, Willowbrook's drowned screams bubbling up, turning beige plaster to bleeding canvas. "This is drill protocol," Rod shouted, face slick with sweat, clutching a crash cart like a shield. "Power failure, mass hysteria, we've trained for this." Intense dialogue fractured the huddle, voices piling like the whispers outside. "Hysteria my ass," I snapped, grabbing his collar, eyes burning. "It's her, Elyria. The logs, the protocol, it's all real. We rally, or we rot." Tina wheeled on a trembling aide, her war paint tattoos stark in the red light. "Kid, you hearing this shit? It's in the vents, the walls, say it with me, or it'll say you." The aide whimpered. "But the drills, we just, screw the drills." Marcus growled from his corner, still pale from his collapse, fists clenched. "It's jumping, Doc, like fleas on a corpse. I felt it hop. We fight, or we feed it." Raj recoiled, but his skepticism cracked, voice dropping raw. "Alex, if you're right. God, the deaths. How do we stop a name?" I leaned in, breath ragged, rallying them with the desperation of the damned. "We silence it. Burn the charts, flood the vents, anything. But first, we hold. For the ones still breathing." The walls bled faster now, ink pooling at our feet, sticky and warm, the names scrawled in looping cursive that seemed to writhe. A tech screamed as her shadow stretched unnatural, whispering back at her heels. Meta hit me then, a gut punch amid the frenzy. This is why I post these, before Elyria silences me like the others, logs redacted, voices archived to ash. You out there, scrolling in the quiet, feel it yet? The pull, the echo in your ears? One survivor whispered the counter-ritual in the chaos, a old Willowbrook chant. Bind the named, veil the claim, but sharing it, invites her. FOMO twisted deep. What if the words on your screen are the summons, pulling you into the huddle? Sirens wailed closer, external responders breaching the perimeter, but the outbreak peaked, whispers cresting to a roar, blackouts chaining into perpetual dusk, echo deaths claiming 2 more in the West Wing, flatlines a dirge that drowned the protocols. We burst from the lounge, flashlights carving paths through the ink-slick halls, my voice hoarse over the din. "Stay together, mark the marked." Reality splintered further, a gurney careening unmanned, crashing with a name etched in its rail. The veil tore wider, Elyria's presence a pressure on the skull, ancient and insatiable. We rallied, a ragged phalanx against the fracture, but the chorus laughed, throaty, triumphant, as the power flickered back, teasing light like a false dawn. Sirens wailed, but dawn? It lied. Dawn's lie shattered into true night, the hospital a husk pulsing with aftershocks, whispers fading to embers, but the air still hummed, heavy with the scent of ozone and ink. We staggered from the huddle, a battered triage of the living, protocols reduced to prayers. The ICU loomed at the end of the fractured hall, its glass doors smeared with drying rivulets of ELYRIA, a threshold I couldn't unsee. Forbidden knowledge burned in my pocket, the counter-ritual from that survivor, scribbled on a napkin stained with coffee and fear. Bind the named, veil the claim, echoes silenced, shadows tamed. Lena's warning echoed, say it wrong, and you're hers. But running. That was for the unmarked. I was neck-deep, the name a burr in my throat, demanding reckoning. It started routine, that cruel contrast, a final patient code in Bay 3, Mr. Donovan, 50s, aortic aneurysm, the kind of save we chase like redemption. Code blue. Tina's voice cracked over the intercom, pulling us in, me, Raj, a tech with shaking hands. Normalcy's last gasp, defib charging with its mechanical whine, chest compressions thumping like a metronome, IVs snaking fresh adrenaline. Clear. Raj barked, paddles arcing blue, Donovan's body jerking under the shock. We worked it slick, sweat-slick gloves slapping skin, monitors beeping their indifferent plea. Pulse faint, hold compressions. I leaned in, breath ragged, forcing the cynical shell. Come on, Donnie, don't make me chart another ghost. A beat of hope flickered, his chest rose, shallow but stubborn. Routine save, the grind's small victory. Then the merger hit, supernatural bleeding into the sterile ritual like ink in water. The lights dimmed to crimson, vents sighing Elyria in a susurrus that synced to our compressions. Thump, whisper, thump, Elyria. Donovan's eyes snapped open, not vacant but vitreous, locking on mine with a depth that swallowed light. His lips parted, not for air, but invocation. Nurse, we've shared shifts before. The voice wasn't his, Elyria's, throaty and ancient, scraping from his chest like gravel over bone, layered with 1,000 borrowed throats. Dialogue detonated, heavy and intimate, pulling me into the standoff. Alex, it purred, his hand twitching toward mine, cold fingers brushing like a lover's promise. You dug so deep. The logs, the veil. Did you think I wouldn't notice? I recoiled, defib humming forgotten in my grip, the routine code fracturing around us, Raj frozen mid-compression, Tina's flashlight beam trembling on the walls where ink reformed, spelling my name now. X. Emotional intensity crested, my cynical facade splintering like cheap glass. No quips, no armor, just raw terror clawing up from the gut, tears hot and unbidden, choking the air from my lungs. What do you want? I gasped, voice athread, the ritual words tumbling out forbidden and frantic. Bind the named, veil the claim, echoes silenced, shadows tamed. But she laughed through him, a wet rattle that vibrated the bedframe. Oh, sister. The code's mine. You whisper to summon, not banish. We've danced this ward eternal, Harlan's rattle, your mother's sigh. Join the shift. Let me chart you. Donovan's body arched, not in revival but revelation, skin paling translucent, veins threading black like roots seeking soil. The merger pulsed, his form blurring at edges, Elyria's spectral outline overlaying, scrubs white as bone, stethoscope coiling like a serpent. Say it full, she urged, voice a caress laced with hunger. Elyria, free me through you. Terror peaked, a scream lodged in my chest, 13 years of holding the line, and here I broke, knees buckling against the crash cart, the weight of every marked soul crashing down. Larger conspiracy loomed in her eyes, Elyria's not alone. Every hospital has a name. Yours. The beeps warped to her rhythm, the code's normalcy devoured, leaving only the standoff, me, vessel or vanquisher, the veil a razor at my throat. I said her name, and she smiled. Lights up, but the quiet? It's pregnant. It stopped. For now. The ICU's crimson haze lifted with the power's grudging return, fluorescents flickering back to life like reluctant witnesses. Donovan slumped still, his chest rising in shallow mercy, saved, or so the charts would claim, the merger's shadow retreating into the ether. Elyria's smile lingered in the corners of my vision, a ghost of teeth, but the whispers? They ebbed, draining from vents and walls like tide pulling from shore. Saint Agnes exhaled, halls emptying into a hollow dawn, gurneys abandoned mid-corridor, ink stains drying to innocuous smears, staff dispersing with haunted eyes and murmured, mass delusion, excuses. Relief washed in, tentative as morning light slanting through blinds, painting the linoleum gold. I wandered those empty stretches, sneakers whispering on tile, the building's pulse slowing to a weary throb. No more choruses, no blackouts, just the faint beep of monitors resuming their solo vigil, the world knitting back into something resembling normal. But paranoia clung, a second skin under the calm. Every shadow pooled too deep, every drip from a faucet echoing that throaty rasp. Marked, Lena had said, branded in the quiet, the name a burr that travels. I caught it first in the break room mirror, my reflection mouthing it silent, lips sinking to a rhythm I couldn't hear. Then, subtler, the hum of the vending machine, threading Elyria into its coil. Cyclical, always, resolution twisting back on itself, the fade a faint. Home called, but even there, whiskers per warped, Mom's voice on the line carrying an undercurrent. You sound tired, hon. Everything, okay. Okay. The lie we all whisper. Dark humor surfaced, bitter pill, promoted to psych ward. Fitting, right? Charting my own descent, doling out meds to the ones who see what I do now. The twist uncoiled in the quiet drive home, radio static hissing the name like a bad signal. Elyria chose me to spread it, vessel, not vanquisher, her echo in my throat, waiting for the next marked ear. Listen close. You feel it yet? That itch, the pull in the pause between words? So here I am, typing this for you. If you heard it too, you're in. That rasp at the edge of your speakers, the way your screen flickered just now, Elyria's hello, polite as a page over the intercom. I've been you, doom-scrolling Nosleep at witching hour, chasing chills like their currency. But this. It's reciprocal. The marked don't whisper alone. We echo in the comments, the likes, the shares that summon her closer. Comment your whispers below, Elyria might reply. Felt it in your chest. Type it out. Heard a name in the static? Drop it. We're all vessels now, aren't we? The veil's thin for everyone who lingered this long. Like that Nosleep collab we did last month, the one with the endless hallway loop, where viewers swore they saw their own doors creak open. This one's interactive. Your theories fuel the fire. Is she the asylum's drowned echo, or something pharma-bred in the labs? Did the counter-ritual work, or just buy time? Hit reply, tag a friend, let's map the thin spots together. I've got callbacks stacking up. Tina's texting me glitches in her dreams, Raj buried the logs deeper. Community's our ward against the quiet. Next shift, the admin's secret. That Elyria protocol email? It's got layers, redacted files pointing to every hospital in the chain. Yours included. Subscribe, hit the bell, don't miss the summons. Theories below, or risk the silence. And just like that first night, it started with a name. Ends with yours? Harlan's rasp in room 7, that first crack in the routine, spiraling us through blackouts and bleedings, mergers and marks, until here, in this fractured dawn, where the echoes don't fade but fold inward, layering your breath with mine. I've typed it all, fingers numb on the keyboard, the screen's glow casting my face in blue pallor, shadows pooling like ink on the desk. Saint Agnes slumbers uneasy outside my window, its silhouette a jagged scar against the sodium sky, but sleep? That's for the unmarked, the ones who scroll past without pausing at the itch. Listen, can you hear it now? The hum in your headphones, that subtle warp in the audio, like a tape stretched thin? It's her, threading through the static, patient as the veil itself. Elyria. I whisper it soft, testing the air, Elyria, and the room glitches, or maybe that's just me. Words distorting on my tongue, voice dipping low, throaty, layered with the chorus, Harlan's rattle, Jamie's snarl, my own from the mirror. The cursor blinks erratic, pixels fracturing like the walls did, spelling your name in fleeting script before dissolving to code. She's here, in the feed, the pause between sentences, waiting for you to mouth it back. Cyclical, eternal, the outbreak never ends, it just finds new mouths. The twist clings. I thought reckoning silenced her, but it's recruitment. Every post, every view, spreads the stain. Subscribe, before she whispers back. Hit that bell, join the echo chamber, your theory might be the next log, redacted or revealed. Or don't. Risk the quiet, where the real fracture waits. Sleep tight. Or don't.